In the EU, the regulatory approach for medical devices is quite different from the US. Today, the processes in the EU are much clearer, simpler, and more straightforward. Another difference between the US and the EU is that the EU has a decentralized procedure. This means that in the EU, there is no centralized regulatory body like the FDA in the US. Rather, there are notified bodies or third parties that audit medical device companies and their quality systems. The European Medical Device Regulation, EU MDR, is a set of regulations for the manufacturing and distribution of medical devices in Europe. EU MDR compliance is mandatory for any medical device manufacturer that wants to sell their products on the European marketplace. EU 2017-745 is the current regulation on medical devices, whereas EU 2017-746 is the current regulation on in vitro diagnostic devices, IDVR. The MDR EU 2017-745 became European law on May 26, 2021, when it replaced the Medical Devices Directive, known as the MDD, and the Active Implantables Medical Devices Directive, also known as the AIMD. The MDR has a 4-year transitional period. The In Vitro Diagnostic Medical Devices IVDR Regulation EU 2017-746 became law in May 2017, replacing the Active Implantable Medical Devices Directive, also known as the IVDD 98/79 EC. This regulation has a 5-year transitional period and became fully enforceable on May 26, 2022. These two new regulations have changed the European legal framework for medical devices, introducing new responsibilities for the European Medicines Agency, EMA, and national competent authorities in the assessment of certain medical device categories. In Europe, the EMA is responsible for evaluating the quality, safety, and efficacy of marketing authorization applications. The global approach in the EU deals with devices conformity assessment on the basis of modular conformity assessment procedures. The aim of a conformity assessment is the CE marking of conformity in the device as a sign of successful EU approval. The CE marking is a 4-digit identification number required to sell medical devices in the European Union. The CE marking is not a quality mark, but an indication that a medical device complies with the requirements of the MDR and the IVDR. It allows for the commercialization of the device across all EU member states. Here is an example of CE marking. A CE marking followed by a 4-digit identification number, like 0123, indicates that TÜV Süd was involved as a notified body in the conformity assessment. With that, what are the responsibilities of the manufacturer in this situation? The medical device manufacturer is responsible for maintaining regulatory compliance and securing CE markings for their products. The CE marking includes proof of compliance with the requirements of the MDR and the IVDR, along with the requirements of all additional applicable EU legislation. You may also be familiar with the term Declaration of Conformity, DOC. This is a mandatory legal document on which the manufacturer declares that their devices comply with EU law. For example, here is a DOC of a pulse oximeter.